What's up, everybody? Dan here with Dan at Star Makers, and thank you for joining us for another episode of our garden shed build series. We are enjoying a beautiful fall morning. It's blue skies, cloudless. There is rain in the forecast for tomorrow, but our larch trees, our quaking aspens, our birch trees, they're all starting to turn yellow, starting to lose leaves. It's a little breezy this morning, so winter is coming. Today's goal is to make sure all of our sheeting is secured properly, whether it's nailed off or screwed off. I'm going to go through the inside, make sure we don't have any shiners, where that basically means a nail missed a stud and is sticking through just the plywood. I'm going to drive those out if there are any, and make sure that there are nails in the stud adjacent to where those shiners may be, if there are any. Once I do that, I am going to put a row of Tyvek. I've got a 2-foot wide roll of it. I'm going to put a row of Tyvek along the top edge of our gable ends, so it goes basically all the way to the very tippy top of our walls. That way, when I get blocking on for our Soffit material, which will be after Tyvek, it will be basically going up under that blocking. It'll be a lot easier to install the Tyvek now, and it will be going all the way up, like I said, so we'll get a continuous good wrap of Tyvek around the exterior walls. I will be putting blocking on over the top of that, and the blocking is going to go on before our fascia goes on. Our fascia and roof only overhang the edge of the building by 12 inches, so once we get 2x6 fascia on, it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to install that blocking in that small little gap. So I'm going to put it on first. It's going to be a lot easier. And then later today, when things warm up, Sarah's going to come out and finish painting our fascia. We want to pre-paint it. That way, again, it's a whole lot easier to do it ahead of time. There will be a little bit of touch-up after it gets installed, but that's a lot easier than trying to paint all of it in place. We also are going to have stain grade Soffit material going in. Tongue and groove is the plan right now. And since that'll be stained if we put that dark green fascia paint on and we accidentally go over the line and hit our Soffit material after everything's done, that wouldn't look good. We're also sealing it on all 4 sides so it'll be more dimensionally stable, rot resistant, and just a better overall product. So let's get after it. I'm going to embarrass myself here, but every carpenter does it at some point in time, and if you never have, wow, that's pretty impressive. So, shiners, that is where, and I actually got some here. Let's focus here. So if you see up here, those nails sticking out the side, I missed the stud on that one. So whether the stud was slightly out of plumb or, you know, I marked the stud wrong or guesstimated wrong, that's what those are. So I'm going to back those out or drive them out with my hammer from this side. I'm going to go on the other side of the wall and I'm going to pull those nails out. That will allow me to look to see if I actually drove another nail in beside the shiner, because, you know, if you've used a nail gun enough, you can kind of feel the recoil of the nail gun, you can hear the nail gun operating, and you can tell if you've hit something solid or if you hit just plywood. So sometimes you'll be able to tell, and you'll go back through and you'll nail a second nail when you know you've got a shiner. So I may or may not need to add nails on the outside. I probably will at some point, but I'm pretty sure along, where's my hand? There it is. Along this stud, I knew that I was not hitting, so I went through and I nailed in the correct location. So I'm going to look at every single stud, both sides, throughout this whole structure. And, you know, over here on this other gable end, up here, there's another shiner there. Just hit the edge of the stud. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. Now's the time to do it before we get our Tyvek or sheeting on. One note on popping shiners out. If the shiner or nail is right next to the edge of the stud or halfway in the stud, it can be really hard to use your hammer to just hit the point of the nail and drive it out. If the shiners are quite a ways away from the stud, no problem. Sometimes you can get your hammer in there and pry the point of the nail away so that you can pound it out. But other times I just use this nail punch, drive pin punch that I carry, and I use that to go alongside the stud and drive the nail out. Another thing to be aware of about shiners is that building inspectors, they typically look for shiners in roofs and shear walls and sheeting, things like that. That way it kind of gives them a judge or an estimate of if somebody did a good job nailing something off. If they missed a lot and they didn't take the time to go back and change those nails out or get rid of them, that lets them know that as somebody really didn't care, they probably didn't do a good job, and I need to look at this a little bit more. One other thing with shiners, and this may or may not be typical, I don't know. One of my buddies worked for a framing contractor years ago, and I think he said they got charged like $1 per shiner that they left in the house. Each carpenter was responsible to go back and inspect their own houses and make sure they were ready for inspection. So yeah, it's harsh, but you probably don't have a lot of issues with shiners and things like that. The only problem is you've got to pay somebody, a foreman, a superintendent, somebody to go through and inspect the house so you know how much to charge those carpenters. The final note about shiners would be not everything is just a matter of bad aim and missing the stud. It can also be that there are hard knots and things like that that actually cause the nail to curl up out. Because I didn't have that many shiners, it's not that ridiculous. I'm just going to go through and hand nail the few nails that I need to install. This one here, I know it's on a stud. I know it's on a plywood seam, so I've only got about 3/4 of an inch of nailing. I'm going to pull it, and then I'm going to replace or install a new nail next to it. I know since I'm on a seam, I got to angle it to that one stud kind of in the center where both of these sheets are nailed to. If I were to see that there was another nail next to it or immediately next to it, I would have known that I only pushed out one shiner and the other nail's in the stud. I can just pull the one that's been backed out or pushed out, and then I'm good to go. I don't need to drive another nail in. At this location right here, I had the nail hit that hard knot and it curled up. There's no reason for me to fight it and try and drive another nail in exactly the same spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to offset my nail. I may go down because I still have plenty of room here. So I think I will go down at an angle and just drive my nail that way. So just an inside industry hint of when you know you're installing Tyvek at the right time of the project is if you try to start installing it and it's really windy and makes it difficult, you're doing it at the right time. Oh, this is going to be a mess. Ah! Alright, well, it looks like I probably only got about enough Tyvek of this 3-foot wide, I think I said 2 foot, but this 3-foot wide roll probably to do one gable end, so I guess we'll have to use strips of the full 9-foot tall roll. One thing I like to do when I'm installing Tyvek on a wall is I like to put a piece of double stick tape along the bottom edge of the wall. That allows me to tack the Tyvek down. It's not going to be indefinite, it's not going to hold it forever, but it does keep it down so wind doesn't lift it up and get underneath it and tear it off the building in that time from when the Tyvek is applied to when siding gets installed. It gives me a little bit of peace of mind, and it also kind of prevents bubbles, so a little less air intrusion potentially, and then a little less bug intrusion also. So I like to do that. This has been framed up in several rainstorms now, so we've got a lot of drippage along the face of the wall, so there's dirt on the bottom. So I'm going to scrub that off, put the double stick tape down along the bottom. Hopefully it sticks. Sometimes it doesn't that well, but hopefully it does. And then I will start rolling this Tyvek out. I'll probably just do one face at a time, tape it off. As I said, when it gets windy, that's the perfect time to install something like Tyvek, where it's going to be blowing all over the place and be a real hassle. So I'm going to get started on it. And yes, for those of you who are very detail-oriented, I will go ahead and install a Tyvek so all the labeling is upright. Just a word, we are not sponsored in any way, shape, or form by Tyvek. It does its job. There are probably by now hundreds of different types of vapor barrier systems out there. Some people probably think this is awful, some people probably think it's great. I don't really know enough or care enough one way or another to say that this is the best stuff or the worst stuff. But it's a garden shed. It'll do fine. Tyvek is finally all done. Now I get to start on our blocking up at the tops of our gables. Like I said, let's get the blocking in before we get our fascia on so we have room to get in there and it'll be a lot easier. So as you can see above and behind me, I've got a ledger now on the wall, so basically a 2x4. I leveled that off the bottom of my rafter tails up to the wall so the ledger is level with the bottom of the rafter tails. And then I took little blocks and I just went across, screwed them to the side of the rafter tail, and then toenailed them with a screw into the ledger. That will give us plenty of backer, so when we do put our soffit material in after the fascia is put on, the fascia will hang down about 2 inches below the rafter tails, the bottom of all this blocking up here, and that will give us plenty of room for our 3/4 inch thick tongue and groove fascia, or sorry, soffit material that we're going to install, and it's got plenty of nailer. I'll have a little bit more blocking on our gable ends. The 2 gable ends, I did put blocking on the face of the building. After we put the fascia on, I'll put a little bit more blocking in there just so we have adequate blocking for our soffit material on the gable ends. I have figured out where the studs are for this back wall when I screwed in my ledger, and now I'm going to transfer onto the Tyvek with just a pencil and a long level those studs on the outside. That way when it comes time to install our siding, we aren't hunting and pecking and trying to find our stud layout. So it'll just be a lot quicker and easier. I can see where all my screws are. I know exactly where the studs are. It'll take me 5 minutes to do it. Well, that's another day down for the garden shed build. Today we got it looking a lot different than it did this morning. We've got our Tyvek up, we've got a bunch of blocking for soffits, so when we do get the fascia on, we're not fighting it. Sarah painted a lot of fascia, got that drying, so tomorrow we'll see if we can get it installed. It's calling for rain in the forecast. It's still beautiful, cloudless, blue sky day, but it is a little breezy, so that might bring in some weather. So anyways, as I said, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share these videos, do all that good stuff. You can follow us on Instagram at DanSarahMakers, and we hope these videos inspire you to get out there and do something. So until next time, have a great one. Bye.